I had to. I had to just give up some of those dreams and recognize that the miracles and dreams that I have. My childhood, to me, is very ordinary. I came from a large family. Back then it was large. 6 girls, and I'm number 5 of the 6. And I was just far enough removed from the older ones that my younger sister and I were kind of shoved by our sisters at times because we were too young to participate. But I had a happy childhood, a good childhood. There's always things that you don't like about your childhood, but most of my memories are happy. We went on family vacations. We did a lot together as a family. And I was fairly close with my sisters. More the real older one, the oldest ones, the ones closer to my age. You know, you do your normal fighting and things, but it was a fun childhood. My mother, she was a nurse. She was an RN, and she worked a lot when I was a younger child. But I had some good memories. She was a lot of fun. Like I said, my grandfather's home was through the field from us, and he had an old chicken coop. And so she cleaned it out one time and made curtains for the windows and had a little cot bed in there and a table and chairs and dishes and made it into our playhouse. And she just did fun little things like that. She was a lady in every word to me. I admired my mom. She was very courageous. She was a trooper. She loved her girls, and everything was always in place for my mom with us girls. Well, being from a large family, I wanted a lot of kids. I always babysat, played with all the kids around the neighborhood. Even when I got a little older, they would come to my house and knock on the door and ask to play with Barney. They called me Barney, they couldn't pronounce Bonnie. So I loved being around children, and I always knew I wanted a big family. And so those were my plans. And when I got engaged, we talked about families, and I always joke with Jim about it that he kind of jinxed me, because when he said, "How many children do you want?" I said 8. I thought he was going to fall off the chair. And I said, "Well, why? How many do you want?" And he said, "Well, 3. Maybe 1 would be good." So I tell him he jinxed me. But when we started our family, I was thrilled. I was ecstatic. And I couldn't wait for that day that he would arrive. And at that time, you know, ultrasounds weren't too good. You didn't know what you were having, but I didn't care. It was a child. And when we were born with a boy, I was really excited because I always wanted an older brother. And that was just exciting, you know, to carry on our family name. And I just saw our family beginning. When my son was about 3, I just kept thinking, why aren't we having another child, you know? And so I started going to doctor's appointments and reading articles about ways to get pregnant. I mean, there were all kinds of things floating around the news, and so I was dumb enough to try them because I wanted a child. I wanted another child so badly. Jim was happy, you know, and that was hard for me because he was happy with his son, and another one at that time wasn't bothering him. And so I wasn't getting that support through him, and that was hard. I wanted to start the adoption process to see if we could adopt a child. And he was kind of so-so. Trying to have a second one was tough. It didn't come, and time went by longer and longer, and I knew it wasn't going to happen. And when we were finally told that our son was a miracle, it all hit. And that was hard. you see your life kind of taking a halt in some ways. I mean, I was still a mother. I loved being a mother and I enjoyed it. But to have that dream of a large family was pretty tough for me. And it took me a long time to get over that. But I finally realized I had to go forward and be a good mother to my son and get every joy out of it that I could. And I knew that he was what I always wanted, a child. And but it didn't stop me from crying every time I saw a baby. You know, it's that mother in you. You want to give that to others. And so it took quite a while. It took quite a while to recognize. My mother-in-law would always say to me, "You're so blessed though to have one," and I'd get so angry. And I knew she was right. I knew she was right, but I didn't want to hear that. You know, you don't want to hear what you need to hear. And so I think some prayers helped with some of the way I was feeling, and but I still just couldn't understand. So it took me a long time to come to the realization that I was kind of missing. I think it was someone asked me something about Keith, what he did at a certain time in his life. And as I started to think about it, I thought, gosh, I don't remember. And that's, I think, when it hit me, that I was skipping, I was missing some of those times. And I had this gorgeous redhead in front of me, and he was an angel. I mean, this kid, he got into little mischiefs now and then, but he was a perfect child. I said, if anyone questioned it, he was the perfect child. He was awesome. And I wasn't enjoying that. And I could start to see that I was missing those times. And so that started the healing process, because I focused more on what I had and what I didn't have. And started relying just on us as a family, on the three of us. I had to just give up some of those dreams and recognize the miracles and dreams that I have. My family slowly dwindled, I guess you would say. I was just before my 30th birthday. It was a few weeks before my 30th birthday. My sister, that's just older than me, we were very close. We did a lot together. She was very kind. She didn't really speak ill of others. She was always doing things and serving, but you never knew about it. She was very quiet, very private. And we went shopping a lot. We took the kids different places. We drove to Arizona to see our other sister together. We did a lot together. And we found out she had cancer, and she died 2 weeks from the day we found out. She had just gone through her first chemo treatment and died the next day. That was my first traumatic experience. That was very difficult. I had never really lost anyone that close to me. I had lost some grandparents when I was younger, but to lose a sister like that was pretty tragic for us. And so that was hard getting over. It took a toll on my mom, and it did my dad, I know, but he never showed anything like that. She's been gone 25 years. And then about, 2003, my dad got sick. And we could tell he wasn't remembering things very well. And so we took him to the doctors, and they diagnosed him with Alzheimer's. And that was about the first part of the year, so February-ish, around his birthday time. And I was very close with my parents, so I kind of became the one that would help with his bills and different things like that. And so I spent a lot of time with him and watching him slowly go downhill and lose weight, and that was tough. That was really hard, because my dad was such a proud person, and very quiet, very dry sense of humor. A lot of fun to be around. He passed away in October of that year. And at the time, my sister, Pamela, she had been living there for quite some time. She was diagnosed with leukemia many years before and was unable to work. And she had been divorced and her kids were grown. So she lived in my parents' basement. And she lasted about 10 years with her leukemia. And so the following year, in 2004, in September, she passed away. And my mom's health has never been great. She's always had illnesses, but she was struggling, and I knew that she was going to need some care. And I knew she couldn't be alone in the house. So she moved in with us here for some time, and with working full time, I couldn't be here all day when she needed me, and so we purchased her one of those little necklaces that you wear around your neck, and the next day she fell. And she landed in our hall and hit her head and bleeding and couldn't get up, and I was notified by this company, and I knew she had fallen before, but she was always able to recover from it. And this one I just knew was going to take her down. And so we had to put her in an assisted living place. And so she was in the assisted living not very long. In 2005, she passed away in November. So within the 3-year period, we lost a lot. And that was hard for me. I had spent so much of my life taking care of him. And that was difficult. My son was just getting married, and you know, you're empty nesters, and you just feel like you don't have a purpose at times. And so losing so many of them, and not living close to some of my other sisters that I was very close with, was really tough. So I had to find other outlets, and I went back to school. And that was one of the things that kind of kept me busy and got me through a very difficult time with losing my family. My Heavenly Father played a lot in the part of me being able to get through those times. I spent a lot of hours praying and asking for help, and my husband too. If anyone spoils their wife, it's him. He's awesome. When my son left home, we always told him that he had to marry an orphan because we didn't want to share him. And so he not only did not marry an orphan, but he married a sweet girl who has lots of family. So that was hard. But I just remember coming home that night from the reception, or it was just a wedding dinner that we had had, and watching him get into the limo with his sweet bride and drive away, yeah, choked me up. And I was happy for him to start his own new life, and I was excited for him. And I was excited in ways for me for years to come now, because I knew grandkids that would eventually come and all that. But I was sad. I was struggling, and we came home that night, and I shed a few tears, and kind of look around an empty house and think, what am I going to do next? And the next day, I got a box in the mail, and when I opened it, I immediately started to cry. It was a dozen white roses and the sweetest card telling me how much my son loved me and what a good mom I was, and thank you for all that I did for him in his life. And that is so satisfying, so gratifying to know that you raised a son that appreciates you, and I knew right then he'd treat his wife like a gem, and that was important to me. I don't think a mother can have any greater joy than her son.